Hey, happy 2023. Let's try to make this a good year. We haven't had that in a while. And I am late with this review for a movie that came out last month, but I still want to discuss it. So let's discuss The Whale. Saw this movie in the theaters with Vincent, and we had a whale of a time. Yep, it's the comeback movie for Brendan Fraser. I mean, I was hoping his comeback film was going to be Encino Man 2, but The Whale. The Whale is a movie that's based off of a play, based off of a book written by Samuel D. Hunter. This film I could have skipped reviewing because I've spent too long of a time from its release, but you know what? Deep down, I feel like the film was speaking to me. I relate to the Brendan Fraser character Charlie. You see, Charlie and we have something in common. We both live in apartments. Darren Aronofsky directs this film. He actually had trouble casting. He wanted to film this movie for over a decade, but he had a hard time casting the right person. It is tough because you don't have too many actors out there that weigh 500 to 600 pounds. I mean, that's not to say they're not out there. It's just, well, if you really want to bring this kind of movie to light, sometimes you have to cast a more notable celebrity to play that part, even if that actor is smaller in build. But Aronofsky actually chose Brendan Fraser after seeing a trailer for Journey into the End of the Night, which is good because we were like, no joke, this close to having James Corden be the main character. Ew! But that's if Tom Ford was going to direct the film. They even offered the part to George Clooney, to which honestly I would say that would have been really pushing it. But Brendan Fraser, I felt like this is right because, I mean, no, he's not 500 to 600 pounds, but Brendan Fraser, well, lack of better expression, he's changed. He's altered his look over the years. He went from a guy with a six-pack to a guy with a bit of a bigger build. This character works for Brendan Fraser because the character gained a lot of weight because in the story, he lost someone he loved, his partner. And that trauma brought him into a deep depression that made him binge and became just always stuck at home. And unfortunately, in real life, Brendan Fraser kind of went through a lot of trauma from working in the industry, which kind of made him go into a whole different rut himself. So this is why I say this is good casting, because it's relatable. Now, I could be one of those people that complain that a straight man shouldn't be playing gay or a skinny man shouldn't be playing obese. And yeah, I can see that, but in all honesty, I also believe that as an actor, you should step out of your comfort zone. Yeah, I mean, if you can play the part well, then go for it. After all, it's not like Brendan Fraser put on a fat suit and just decided to act like Chris Farley or Kevin James. He put some seriousness into this role. He actually did consult with the Obesity Action Coalition to get an idea about the character. He even studied a form of ballet to help him walk like he's a man of that size. And I gotta say, the prosthetic of the suit is very well done. It's not comedic. It's actually pretty realistic. The suit actually weighs 300 pounds. So you put that on top of Brendan Fraser's current weight, that's already similar to what the character is. My only complaint is, did the makeup artist have to make Charlie look like Shadow King from Legion? So a quick rundown. The film is actually about Charlie. He had a wife and daughter, but he ended up leaving them when he actually followed his heart and realized that he was in love with one of his former college students. Now, it sounds problematic, him, a professor, falling in love with a male college student for the fact that it's a professor and a student. But at the same time, they do kind of explain that the student was an older college student attending classes. But still, it is a little bit of a sketchy area. Nonetheless, they were together, they fell in love, but because of the religious background that the lover had, he had to deal with parents that rejected him, which, without giving out too much information yet, the character pretty much takes his own life. life. That's why Charlie goes into this really traumatized, depressed rut. He begins teaching from home, and he doesn't even have his camera on when this happens. Charlie's best friend, Nurse Liz, who also happens to be the sister to the lover, played by Hong Chow. She gives a great performance. You really do believe that she had this long-lasting friendship with Charlie. She's always there to take care of Charlie and all his illnesses, but at the same time, it does show her enabling his behavior, his addiction to food. Sadie Sink from Stranger Things, she's in the film. She plays Charlie's daughter, who has a problem with Charlie because, well, he walked out on her and her mother. The thing is, Sadie Sink, I don't really like her character in Stranger Things, but I really loved her character in this film. You could tell this film was actually meant to be a play because most of the film takes place in the apartment. And the weird thing is, though, the film is actually shot like it's a full screen format. I'm not really sure why they did that, but yeah, it's just kind of weird seeing it on the big screen, but the black bars on the sides of the screen. There aren't too many characters in this film. In fact, it's really just a handful. You do see a lot of characters in the beginning, but they're like his students, and that's over a video call because he teaches online classes. So we do learn a lot of the struggles and the anger and the emotion, the depression. You feel for Charlie. You actually feel bad for him, even though he kind of put himself in a situation by walking out on his family. But, the heart wants what the heart wants. And unfortunately, it takes it out on himself. So let me just go ahead and just skip right to the spoilers real quick, and then I will get back to you. So for those of you that have seen the movie, stay right here. If you haven't seen the movie and don't care, stay right here. If you have not seen the movie and don't want to be spoiled by it, why don't you just scurry along and the adults will talk. I'll see you right about this time. Sounds like a real predicament with our friend Charlie, huh? There's not really much to discuss. It's just that anything that you think will happen does happen. You can tell what happens just from the trailer. It's just basically about a man pretty much letting himself go. He doesn't even have health insurance, but he has $125,000 in his account because he wants to leave that for his daughter, who comes back into his life because she's just fed up with him, but she has to see him. And you do feel that anger between Ellie and Charlie. It's just Ellie being angry with what her father has become after abandoning her and her mother, and Charlie is just allowing her anger to happen. He has to bribe her to keep him company so she can do better in school, even to the point of saying that he'll write her paper. We're introduced to Missionary Thomas, played by Ty Simpkins. He was the young boy in Jurassic World, and he was the boy from Iron Man 3. His whole thing is he's trying to get to Charlie to motivate him, but also to motivate him with God, even if Charlie is a homosexual. Which, by the way, I could see this movie being loved by people from different groups, but I could also picture conservatives weaponizing this movie. Charlie wouldn't be in this predicament if he actually stayed with his wife, a woman, instead of going with that man. But I feel like the sex of the partner has very little to do with Charlie, because if Charlie was straight, he probably might have done the same thing with a female student. But it does move the story along because the lover is connected to Charlie's best friend, a nurse, who also grew up in a family of religious zealots, and she kind of already does not like the young missionary boy because it reminds her of her upbringing and her losing her brother. In fact, Liz even brings along Mary. Mary is Charlie's ex-wife, and she looks like she's a mess. She looks like someone who has not recovered ever since Charlie left. But to Samantha Morton's credit, she plays the character very well. She could have easily just come in and been like an angry ex-wife, but you could tell that in her resentment for Charlie, she still loves him and still misses him. She hugs him just to hear his heartbeat, and that's where you can feel that her love for him is still there. You can't blame Mary for being mad at Charlie because, yeah, sure, Charlie realized who he was as far as, being a homosexual, but it doesn't excuse him from betraying her and her daughter. There's also a whole message or part where Ellie, the daughter, tries pulling tricks onto Charlie by drugging him, making him fall asleep. She connects with the missionary boy to make him realize that he should be pursuing things on his own terms. We learn about the whole reason why this missionary boy is doing what he does, even though it's all set up as a lie. Even if she's doing it in a vicious way, Ellie is actually helping out the characters. There are many little cues throughout the film that tell us more about Charlie's breakdown. I mean, aside from his obvious weight gain and him just eating whatever, and oh my gosh, some of the scenes of him eating the food, and when he keeps ordering pizzas so much that the pizza delivery guy, Dan, who we only hear by voice for the longest time of the film, is actually showing concern for him because they never see one another because, if you have a delivery, you just drop it off at the door and Charlie just gets it after the delivery person leaves. And then we see Dan at the end when Dan finally gets a look at Charlie and is shocked. Okay, I know it's rare to see a 500-pound or 500 to 600-pound person, but I have to say, my complaint is some people really just kind of take their reaction a bit too far. I mean, a little bit, right? Because, okay, when Mary sees Charlie in his weight, that's a real shock because, she's used to her ex-husband looking one way, and here's what's become of the man she loved. But when strangers see him, it's almost comedic how they respond to him, in complete shock. Hell, even when he finally reveals his face to his students on the computer, they're just in comedic shock as well. Some of them pulling out their cell phones, taking a picture, okay, alright, I mean, yeah, it's not a usual sight, but it's not exactly a let's pull out our cell phones and take pictures kind of deal either. And hell, in fact, his students are the ones that ratted him out when he wrote to the students to write whatever the F they wanted, just as long as they're honest. But oh yeah, no, can't use the F word without the students flipping out about it. It's also weird that the university would fire him for something like that. I mean, yeah, it's an outburst, not very professional, but if he's tenured, I wouldn't imagine him being let go would be so immediate. But we do have to see his downward spiral. We see a bird that he constantly feeds. I'm still trying to figure out the symbolic meaning to it. I think it's his only friend, and the way his friends treat him by feeding him, even though they really shouldn't be feeding him so much, he feeds the bird a lot as well. So it's kind of like a passed on thing. In his 2-bedroom apartment, he closed off the better looking room because that's where he and his partner slept in. But he ends up sleeping in a lesser glamorous room that's really dark, and he has chains to pull himself up because that's just the torture he puts himself in. So at the end, when he dies, which sad to say, but we kind of see that coming, right? I guess at the end when he dies, it's not even him collapsing on a floor, but as he's trying to walk and he looks up and it turns into a bright light and then it cuts to him being on a beach. Well, I guess that's supposed to be his heaven, is him being at the beach, reliving the moment that he was at the beach with his little girl. See, I wish I could make more jokes about it, but it's actually a very impactful film and it is very heartbreaking. So let's go ahead and bring in our friends, the ones that have not seen the movie. We don't want to ruin it for them, right? So let's bring them in right about... Hey there, Whale of Tears. I am your Ishmael, and we are gonna wrap this up. A movie where the title is based off of Moby Dick because, obviously, Brendan Fraser as Firefly in the Batgirl movie, that should have been his comeback, but Tony, we're being serious. This is a serious film. We're not talking about comic books. If you go see the movie, prepare for it to be a full screen format, but also bring some tissues with you. There were a lot of tears in that theater. So on the Anthonix rating scale, however you want to take that, I'm going to say the film is an 8 out of 10. Closer to a 9 than a 7. There are some questionable moments and questionable reactions in the film, but the main characters, they all played the part that really deserves every award they get. We laughed at Brendan Fraser before, just based off of his selections of movies in the past, but the man has some acting chops, and he deserves much better. And don't look at this movie as a smaller build man playing a big man through a fat suit, because honestly I had to really double check to make sure it was a fat suit and how much of it, because if you told me that he actually gained weight purposely, I would have believed it, because it is convincing. Yeah, again, he looks like Shadow King from Legion, but the suit itself, the prosthetic, the makeup, all believable. With a budget of $3 million and a film earning back $13.2 million? Darren Aronofsky, don't make us wait too long for the sequel. The Whale 2, back in action. Anyways, be on the lookout for some more Anthonix Maximus Matinee like this is, and more Anthonix Maximus reviews. I'm the man in question, Anthonix Maximus. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a whale of a 2023.